Hi, John. I want to speak to your SeeSaw system that you've been talking about on TreeBuzz. And it references some of the comments I've had in the past about the climbing and the hauling systems and what we call them and such. But this is a Petzl shunt, and it has a single fixed, these are not independent. So it's great on a double line, whatever we're going to call that. In that I did a video a long time ago on setting a floating anchor with it, because you can send this up your rope from the ground if you want to set a floating anchor someplace. So you can pull that up the rope and set it, then pull out your little half hitch. To bring it back down, you put a throw line on here and that'll disengage and bring your anchor back down. But because they're stationary, it's hard to get that floating walk that you're talking about. So the other device that's really great for that, and it works similar to if you put double friction hitches here, basically the same concept. And even if you use double friction hitches, they still have to share an anchor. You know, you're going to have to anchor it to your harness someplace. So if you had double friction hitches, they're still going to have a joint anchor. But as we know, if we're using this for a climbing system and it's in the moving rope, we hold the one side stationary, like if you're doing a Blake's hitch or any moving rope, one side is going to be stationary and you pull it up, and the climber, using a climbing system, gets a 2-to-1 mechanical advantage, right? So if we change it to a hauling system, in other words, somebody down here, the guy on your teeter-totter, if somebody down here starts to do that and he pulls the same climber up that's connected here, now there's no mechanical advantage. He's just pulling that climber straight up the tree. So that's why I advocate that we have a hauling system and a climbing system. The results of the two are completely different. So, but what you're alluding to is, oh, and let me address too this. Some guys, when you use one of these, if you foot lock or if you do 2 foot ascenders at the same time, and you use a sit-stand method, which is basically what a foot lock does, is you're going to grab both pieces of rope and you're going to stand up and you take that up with you, sit down, reset your feet. If you try to do 2 of these in a rope walking manner, all you end up with is walking on a trampoline. You get so much stretch in the rope, and the only way to counter that is to hold your lines together and keep that stretch from taking place. So you lose a lot from trying to do that. So it's either 2 foot ascenders, sit-stand method, or foot locking with this. But what you're getting at is trying to use this in this manner. You'll notice that it goes up. There's a lot of friction locks. If you put a weight on this, it's difficult. If you put a weight on this right here with your anchor, and it's a shared anchor, they're independent, but it's a shared anchor. When you do that, this one's always going to share some of the load, so there's going to be a lot of friction on there. But nonetheless, if you pull back and forth like this, you can see that it kind of walks its way up the rope, and that's the point you're after. Is you're saying put the climber on here, and then however this happens down here, it'll pull that climber up the rope. Well, that's fine, except again, because it's a hauling system, there is no mechanical advantage in doing that. When you pull this climber up from this point, from here and he goes up the rope, this guy and this guy, they have no mechanical advantage. So what you're talking about is with the SeeSaw down here getting some mechanical advantage. As we know, you can have any kind or various kinds of simple machines to generate a mechanical advantage. You could have a 10-speed bicycle down here somehow, winding the rope and shift the gears and get mechanical advantage. But that doesn't mean that the same amount of work doesn't get done. It's always the work energy concept always has to get done regardless of how you do it. If you set a lever down here, your teeter-totter, and it's counterbalanced, it doesn't matter. The work still has to get done. It would be the same thing as if you didn't have a teeter-totter, but if you had a lever with a spring in it, and then this person, the spring was adjusted so that this person is basically weightless, well, you know, he's going to have to push up with his legs or something to make that happen. The mechanical advantage could be done with an inclined plane. You could put some kind of wedge in here that would pull this rope down. Again, your lever, if you have a 4-foot lever and you have this clear out on the end of that 4 feet, there's not going to be any mechanical advantage. If you bring it in halfway on that lever, then it's a 2-to-1 mechanical advantage. If you bring it in just 1 feet on that 4-foot lever, then it's a 4-to-1 mechanical advantage. The advantage of a lever is you can have an infinite adjustment in there. With ropes, we're stuck with a 2-to-1 or a 4-to-1 or those kind of things because it doesn't have that kind of adjustability. So you could do this with pulleys too. I mean, you can set up a 3-to-1 pulley down here, some kind of a pulley configuration. But regardless of how you set this up down here, the work still has to be done. And if it's like you said, a teeter-totter, that's fine. But when this guy's legs come off the ground, this other guy, that however you've rigged this rope so that he gets mechanical advantage, he still has to do the leg work. There's no way about that. And then as soon as he comes off the ground, this other guy's going to have to do the leg work. So you'd be better off if this is what you're trying to accomplish, and have that climber go up with that kind of a technique, then the method to get some kind of a mechanical advantage on a hauling system that doesn't otherwise have a mechanical advantage is via the levers, pulleys, incline plane, any kind of other simple machine. But you're not going to get out of, unless you can invent the perpetual motion machine, you're not going to get away from having to do the work that needs to be done.